love. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love in sweet surrender, in sweet surrender. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love in sweet surrender, in sweet surrender. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love. Everybody now. Oh, and sweet surrender. Everybody. Great, let's pick it up now. And all that I am, I offer at the altar of love. Put your hands together now. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love in sweet surrender, in sweet surrender. And all that I am, I offer at the altar of love. Yes. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love. Oh, in sweet.
So how many of you have heard and perhaps even said, we are spiritual beings having a human experience? How many of you have told that to others? Like you knew it. But often it's a phrase. It's a phrase. We recognize it, but we don't really know how to use it effectively. It's like if we were at an airport where a lot of people flew in and out of, like Heathrow or Miami. I haven't gone to any New York airports recently. Praise the gods. Anyway. But if you go to an airport where people are flying in and out, you will often hear other languages, other dialects. And I bet if you were there, you could recognize German if it was being spoken. I bet you could recognize French if it were being spoken. I bet you could recognize Italian if it were being spoken. But just recognizing it and speaking it are two different things. Recognizing that we are spiritual beings having a human experience doesn't mean that we know how to speak spirit. Right? Because I know we're spirit, you know we're spirit, but I think that we have a habit of playing human. And this talk is about how to kick that habit, because it is a habit. I didn't know I was going to talk about this until I was driving in, but I was remembering my good friend, Christy Smith. And in our 20s, she was way ahead of me. We had started out similar interests, doing the similar things, but I should just check in with her now and see what she's doing, knowing what I'll do in 10 years, because she was ahead. And she was ahead by reading Carlos Castaneda's. How many remember those books? And the book's Don Juan. Now, Don is not his name, that was his title. It's like honorary, like reverend. And so I was going to say, that, you can start calling me Don Kathianne, but I found out that that's not correct. You must call me Doña Kathianne. I like it so much. Doña. Oh, yes, let's just go there. Anyway, back to the talk. Thank you. So I was telling the group that I was speaking to 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas, I was saying, since this is the life you've been dying to have, if you believe in reincarnation, then you should already be planning your next one. And so I was saying that I wanted to have a singing voice. It's about time to have a singing voice. I want a great singing voice and long legs. And all of a sudden, I realized I just had this image of being on a planet where giraffes sang. But now I just want to be a doña. That's it. Doña. So in this whole thing about what Carlos Castanedas was learning from Don Juan was that what we think is real probably isn't. There's so much more going on than we are aware of. And this tradition, this shamanic tradition from Mexico, and probably being heavily influenced by the Inca tradition, not Inca, but Aztec tradition, was that you just have to stop your limited focus so that you can expand and see something so much greater. And out of that greater, you have more power, more choice, more ability. You become a master in the world. And I wasn't ready for that. I liked concrete. This is what I believe, this is what I do. But if you think about it, it's so true, just even physically, like as in the physical world, we think we see things, but we only see a small spectrum of what's available in light. We think we hear things, and we only hear a small spectrum of what's available through sound waves. And we call this what's going on. And there's so much more going on. Dogs can hear things we can't hear. Most animals can see things we don't see. They see different frequencies. There's so much more going on. And there's more going on in another vibrational way that doesn't preclude what we're doing, but there's just more. So when we come from a spiritual point of view, we're looking at the more and acting out of the more instead of being constrained by what we can perceive in the moment. There's so much going on. More than we can talk about. And therefore, and actually language is very important. I'm going to get back to language in a moment. When I say talk about or think about, all of the talking and the thinking is through language. So let's go back to you recognize German but can't talk it or communicate with it. You can recognize French, but you still can't ask for a croissant in French. No matter how much you go, croissant. I mean, it doesn't, how many croissants, And I got a lot of this out of a talk that I heard from David Bruner. And what he really is into language now because he fell in love with a gentleman from Mexico, the Guadalajara area. And and because he moved to the United States and he's in business, he's trying to immerse himself in English. And David is trying to learn more Spanish because most of his family in the Guadalajara area, they don't speak English. In fact, he wants to have a relationship with his mother-in-law, and she doesn't speak English. So if they're going to have a relationship beyond then he needs to learn some language. And so he's really interested in language itself. In fact, this is, and so what he's into immersion. Immersion is a way of learning a language very quickly because you're immersed in it. You're not reading about it. You're not studying about it. You're being immersed in it because every language has nuances that are hard to pick up just by studying it. An example he used is reading about a gentleman who majored in French, in the French language in college. And then he's so excited and he goes to France after he graduates and he has a 5-year-old correcting him on his use of the language. And he's thinking to himself, but I studied this. But see, even studying it, the number of hours that it would take, even in college, to study a language is not the same number of hours that a 5-year-old would have already had immersed in that language. And language is important, and how you speak it is important. I think it was, I'm pretty sure that I heard this from Jean Houston. She said, we have to talk about that which is unspeakable, but the only way to even begin to conceive of that which is unspeakable is through the bridge called language. We take ourselves there through our language. Language can change everything, and it changes cultures. So us speaking spirit is going to be different than speaking human. But an example is, and this comes from David, is that in the Spanish language, they don't own behaviors. So he gives the example of his mother-in-law, always late. But it's okay. I mean, they have a different culture. How many of you have gone to Mexico? It's a different thing. And so from his point of view, she's always late. Not from her point of view. She never says, I'm late. She says, the time is late. The time is late. Time is late. But not her. What would it be like if we did something and we didn't own it as bad? It's late. The food, it was a lot. Not, I ate too much. Oh, this is what got you. I love it. Okay, the body image group. Okay, fine. I just like to know my audience. By the way, is it okay if we go a little over today? Yes. Because there's going to be a whole prayer thing, and we have a tendency, even out of our goodness and our advanced realization about what's good for anybody, we have a tendency to shame those people who haven't come along. Right now where there's a whole thing about fat shaming, because thinner is healthier. So we make those people who aren't there, or they don't meet our standards, as bad. And I had this dialogue with one of my friends last night, another minister, and she said, I've always been really demonstrative, but I had breast surgery. She had a mastectomy. And after that, she just didn't want to hug people, self-conscious. And now people in her church are calling her standoffish. See, and I said, oh, goody, hug shaming. Well, it's like, we're always like, it's not where I'm at, so you're different, so that's going on. That's being human. That's human talk. That's the language of everyone should be like me. It's not the language of spirit. David said that the way to learn any language effectively is immersion. So how can we practice spiritual immersion without retreating to some faraway place or closing ourselves off or going to a remote monastery? I love God and I love being here. And I like eating out. I don't want to go to some place where I'm just not going. And I think it's perfectly okay, because Jesus said, and we always refer to him as the teacher Jesus. He's a master teacher, just like Muhammad was a master teacher, Buddha was a master teacher, Lao Tzu was a master teacher. There have been master teachers. And Jesus was one of them. And he said, I'm in the world, but not of it. So I'm participating in the world, but I'm remembering who I am. I'm participating in the world, fully active, but I'm not being seduced to thinking that I'm the effect of the world. I'm not the effect of what's going on. Now, for those of you who think that that's hard or might be impossible, he also said, these things and greater things you shall do also. And then he said, and I think people got it all wrong, a whole religion was set up on this statement. Whole religion. You won't guess which one it was. And he said, follow me. And so people have been following him. I follow Jesus. No, that's not what it meant. I'm sure it was. I mean, I was in my meditation. I just got it. Because he was so misunderstood all the time. I think he was going, the translation could have been with another sort of inflection language. Another inflection, not follow me. It was follow me? Yeah, follow me? Are you getting this? You know, it looks like Are you understanding? Are you understanding that you can be here totally present? You don't have to remove yourself from life, but you can be cause in your life instead of effect? Einstein wrote a letter that from a friend. He wrote a letter to a friend, and I want to share it with you. His friend had just lost his son, and this was his condolence to the father. He said, "A human being is a part of a whole called by us universe," one verse, "a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts, and his feelings as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. The striving to free oneself from this delusion is the one issue of true religions." True religions. And it's not like there's a true religion and a false religion. It's that at the very heart, there's some truth in that religion, and then it's been added to. But the heart of every religion is to bring us back to center our spiritual reality, that we speak more spirit than we do human. That we really do perceive ourselves as a spiritual being having a human experience. The striving, of every true religion, not to nurture the delusions, but to try to overcome it, is the very way to reach the attainable measure of peace of mind. And who wouldn't like some more peace of mind? You know, whether it's what's happening in your world or what's happening at seeming the world, sometimes we just want more peace of mind. So I want to be the cause of my peace, not the effect of what's going on. And what's going on troubles people at times. It's troubling. And we could remove ourselves from any sort of information about what's going on, but then we're not in the world. I mean, it's lovely to go to some place like Seebeck, and I'm going to go to Egypt for 2 weeks. It's lovely to not be reading the news. But I can't stay out of this world forever. And then I will come back. And I want to be in this world. But I don't want to be of it. I don't want to be the effect of it. So how do we free ourselves from this delusion that we are separate from others? That's the optical delusion. And this is just what Don Juan was telling Carlos Castanedas so many years ago. And I couldn't get it. That we're all interrelated, and what happens to one happens to all, and that anybody can affect anything. Because we are in a universe. To give up the delusion that we're separate from others, that we're separate from what our heart longs for, and that we are alone and without resources, and that we'll never achieve contentment, that's a delusion, and we can get over it. How many of you would like to do that? Well, not very many. We might as well just have music. Who would like to get over their delusion they're alone in the world? And sometimes you're not. You may be totally filled up and prayed up right now, and you may be knowing your connection with everything. You might be there. But will you stay there? How many of you have noticed that spiritual feelings go kind of like this? There's a good day, there's a bad day. There's a good day, there's a bad day. Well, I do know that there's a practice that helps us go like this. So that our floor used to be the ceiling we thought we'd never reach. So I want to share with you some practices. It is a way, it's not the only way. The first way, though, the first thing to do, and I'm going to give you 5 things to do, but the first one is to recognize that there's an eternal reality existing in the midst of all your stuff. There's an eternal reality existing in the midst of all your stuff. Life lives and balances itself to restore itself. Love is not intimidated by what is going on. Love is real, life is real, God is real, and goodness is real. And it's hard. And why do I say that? Because every mystic, every great sage, every great philosopher said that. They were a little higher up the mountaintop than me. I'm just trying to get there. And so I'm taking them at their word. And it's amazing that when I affirm that myself, I'm lifted. When I too recognize that myself, I'm lifted. I like the lift. I want to be there. I was telling my self-mastery class that in 2016, the shit did not hit the fan. The shit hit 5 fans. 5 areas of my life were hard. To say the very least, they were hard. And it was difficult to stay sane. And I've studied this stuff not long enough to know that if I did not allow myself to be lifted, what was going on in my mind would affect my body. It would eventually affect all my relationships and my ability to be sane and cope with what was happening. I had to turn my attention not on the stuff that was going, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. No this, no that, no this, no that. No, I'm more important. And I had to lift my mind and my attention, and I had to say that only God is real, only God is real, only God is real, only love is real. There's a beautiful song by, do you know MC Yogi? There's a great song by MC Yogi. Only love is real, only love is real. And I'd play that. Only love is real. Only love is real. When you're lost and disconnected. Oh, I can go there so easy. Isn't it easy that we can go downhill easier than we can go uphill? How many of you just went downhill with me? Stop it. That's what I had to say to myself. Stop it. Only God is real, because even in the midst of all the stuff that was going on, and it seemed like so much was calling my attention, when I said that God's what's real, all this is transitory. This will come and go. I'm an eternal soul. This is a parenthesis in time. I'm from the beginning and I'll be there at the end. And what am I going to put my attention on? My eternal self? Or my personality that doesn't like what's happening? Which was me. And guess what? I was lifted. And it seems like somehow in some miraculous way, at least in my head, those fans were turned off. And I was no longer being hit in the face. Some through absolute miracles, some through deciding it really didn't matter. Not in the big scheme of things. Now, I believe that people that show up in a place like this are awake to not only what's happening in their life, but what's happening on the planet. And sometimes it's distressing. And we can feel alone, and we can feel like there's nothing we can do, and that's distressing. The world is not getting worse. Actually, statistically, it's getting better. 300 years ago, there was, we have the rich 1% now, but 300 years ago, there were only a few families that owned everything, and everyone else worked for those. We are waking up. We are coming out of a shell of a culture almost worldwide that has been there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And some of us are awake to that, and we want it to happen faster. But we have to know that our consciousness is that which is incubating this shift. If you took an egg and you saw that the chick was trying to get out and you tried to help that chick, if you open up that egg before the chick can get out, it will die. What you can do is just keep it warm. We're incubating a world revolution from the ground up, where all the people come first. And for those of us that don't see it happening fast enough, it can be anxiety producing. But our job is to turn up the heat, turn up the love, turn up the understanding, and still affirm that only God is real, and that it is making itself known through human consciousness in a way that's appropriate for everyone, so that we don't make people so wrong that we kill them in our minds. Because Spirit doesn't do that. Spirit loves. A good litmus test for whether we're speaking spirit or we're speaking human is to the degree that we condemn. After we've remembered our connection with the One, after we remember that we're all in this together and that things are happening for good and that God is the reality of our eternal essence, after remembering that, we remember that if we are one with that eternal essence, then we must be what that eternal essence is, which is good. We must be life, we must be love, we must be goodness. And here's how, and this is, just check this out. How many of you have had babies or had people around you who have had babies? How many of you have ever seen one? Now, I know you've been one, but it was hard to remember. But you've seen them. I personally haven't had one, but I've had two sisters and one brother, and I pretty much raised them. I know babies. And babies absolutely love themselves. They think they're cool. You know, they don't come out of the chute going, "Oh, I'm so fat." These cheeks. Instead, they're going. And then they'd pull up their little toes. I could do it, but it'd be embarrassing. They'd pull up their feet and look at their toes. And they want to get into everything. Everything's okay. Your food, your earrings. Isn't that true? They're absolutely in love with all of everything around them and themselves. That's who we were. That's us. You know, there's a whole bunch of stuff out about, I've got to do my inner child work, like that's wounded child. Well, yeah, you were wounded, but first you were innocent. We just don't go back far enough. And when I've worked with people, I've let a lot of them, when I work one-on-one, I lead them back to that original innocence, and they remember it, and they're like, and what they say about themselves has nothing to do with their history and their personality that was developed after that original innocence. It's beautiful. And I think and then there was one other thing about a child. A baby expects to be cared for. That's why they cry, to get your attention. Take care of this. See this diaper? Take care of it. Until you do. I want my food. I want to be left alone. I want to be held. I want to be put down. I want to be played with. And they let you know. Don't they let you know? And maybe that's why Jesus said that if we're going to enter the kingdom of heaven, which means the realm of power, we must become as little children. Go back to that. I'm good and I want. Now, how many of you, when I just said, I'm good and I want, triggered anything? In fact, it was right over in this area. I saw it. I felt it. It's like it triggered something. I'm not supposed to want. I'm a spiritual person. Not supposed to want. Oh, what a bunch of bunk. As long as you are in a physical body, you better want something. Because that body needs you to care for it, just like that baby needed the universe and their parents to care for it. We can over-spiritualize everything, and then we stop listening to ourselves, which leads me to the third thing we have to do, is as a child, declare what you want and need, at least to yourself. And then to a practitioner, a prayer practitioner, put it in a ministry of prayer. We're going to have a chance to pray for each other pretty soon. Be specific about what you want. I was in Las Vegas, so I can talk about them. Hopefully they're in service and they can't see this. But I did a workshop, and I was surprised that everybody I worked with in that workshop, none of them could be specific about what they wanted. It was all sort of this, more joy. More joy. More love. Yeah, how? And it was always, when I asked them to get specific, there was a specific thing they wanted the joy in. There was always something much more specific that would trigger joy. But we lost the ability to know our heart. I don't know about you, but mine happened when my mother told me, don't ask. I asked for something, don't ask. So, because the women in our family didn't ask. They just sort of like hoped somebody would get it. In some cultures, it's called manipulation. So stay alert to your needs, express them to the universe and others if necessary. But first to yourself. What does your heart desire? I noticed that when I become bored, grumpy, spacey, it's because I'm not giving my heart voice. And I cheer up just by saying, this is what I really want. And then we live a life of gratitude. Eric Butterworth said, a grateful heart draws great things to them. And there's always more to be grateful for than there is to complain about. Even in 2016, when I thought I was dealing with so much, I had a family that supported me. I had friends that loved me. I had horses that would heal me. I had so much going on that was good. So much. I knew that I could sit on the earth and the earth would absorb the emotions that I couldn't deal with. There was so much to be grateful for. There always is. If we get back to frequency, and a lot of people talk about the law of attraction, and attractions can sometimes be a thing, but it really works more on the level of frequency. And gratitude is a frequency that has the power to attract other things that will support that frequency. So love attracts love. Joy attracts more joyful experiences. Hate attracts more things to hate. What you're vibrating on will start to shift the reality that you see. And then you just have to stop micromanaging and let the universe take care of everything. There is one thing you do need to manage, though, and that's your attitude and your focus. But that's the only thing. The rest is up to the universe. And since it's one with us, our greatest desire is the universe's desire for us to be expressing. And in expressing that and being more alive in that way, we do something to the web of life that is beneficial to the web of life. It's just the way that it works.
This is the day.